Hi guys, Faxi here. In this video I would like to show you a plugin from dNa for the Scope Fusion platform. It's called a dNa channel rack. It's been released together. There's also the dNa effects rack, which is a stereo multi-effects device with some similar concepts as it works inside the same sort of rack. But in this video, we'll take a quick look at the channel rack. I recommend you also take a look at our other video for the FX rack because a lot of the functionality is kind of similar. But this one is a mono effect. It is kind of sort of like a API lunchbox idea, and it is mainly this specific one. The channel rack is mainly useful for recording external sort of things. I'll not be giving a sound example in this video. I just want to take a look at the functions, and you can check it out for yourself. So, like we said, it's a multi-effect sort of channel rack. And as I've said, it's useful for external stuff. So what I mean by that is like microphones, guitars, and other instruments that you, like let's say acoustic or electric instruments. It's cool for synthesizers as well. But some of these, at least let's say two of the things over here, the preamp and the gate, are mostly useful for stuff like guitars, as I said, and microphones and such. The EQs, the insert slot, and the compressor are obviously useful for anything else. Of course, you can use, if you want, the preamp for a synthesizer or for whatever you want. But just kind of keep that in mind that it is like really kind of made with instruments in mind. So before we get into the effects themselves, again, you can look at our dNa effect rack video for more information on kind of like the way it works, but I'll mention it here again. You have a main option over here to load all the modules on DSPs. If you turn this on, then the device will take up more DSP, but will act in a more stable way as you change around the presets. The DSP used will not change. The only thing that will change the DSP is the effect loaded into the insert slot. So if you have the same effects loaded, then as you can see, the DSP won't change even if you change presets. So this is pretty handy, but if you want to save some DSP, let's say you've chosen your own preset, you can turn this off, and then it'll use a little bit less DSP. And that way you can conserve a little bit if you're concerned about that. So on a 10 DSP system with multiple cards, as I have set up on this PC over here, then it'll take up, this, like, let's say, what is it, like 1/4 of your DSP. On a bigger system, of course, it'll take up less. On an X side, it'll take up even less. So what do we have here? So I mentioned before the gate and the, let's turn everything off. Wait, hold on. And it's empty. So let's just go over them one by one. Let's start with the preamp. So let's say you're inputting like a microphone, as we said, or guitar. You have an option to give it some preamp volume with the gain knob over here. There's also a phase switch for the gain, and you can turn off the drive, which kind of adds a little tiny bit of fuzzy distortion. Not a whole lot. It's just a little bit of warmth to the sound. You also have a high pass and low pass filter built in over here. So I kind of mentioned that this is the preamp is mostly for instruments, but again, you can input something and you don't even have to use the gain. You can use it just as a filter if you would like to. And you can see that the cutoff points, it's not like a smooth running filter. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be set one time, so it jumps from off to 15K, 10K, 7K, 5K, 3.5, 2.2. And the same with the low pass. It jumps between preset filter positions. So that's for the preamp. Let's just go. You know what? Let's go this way. So the next you'll have a gate, and this is just your your basic gate plugin that kind of lets you cut away noise. Let's say you're recording a guitar with a lot of distortion, and you want to all that feedback from your amp, whatever that you are recording. You want to kind of control it a little bit, so you can use the gate plugin for this. there's the usual controls that you will know, threshold, and a sort of hysteresis sort of thing over here going on. The unique feature over here is the attack can be set. There's preset positions for the attack: slow, medium, and fast. The release can either be variable and set by this knob over here, or it can be also preset to fast, medium, and then instead of slow, you have variable. So here you have fast, medium, and slow, and here you have fast, medium, and variable. Also, you have different modes that the gate responds to. It can be respond to a keyed response if you connect MIDI to the device over here. Or it can have no key response, just like this, and that way it'll work without any MIDI, without anything, just as a normal gate. Next up, let's go to the EQ4. You actually have two different EQs. Okay, I'll show them kind of together. So you have EQ4, and you have the graphical EQ. So EQ4, and then this guy over here. So the EQ4, basically it's 4 bands, low, mid-high, and high. But they can also kind of, they can be set, again, with preset positions. So the low can go from 50 to 320 on different positions, and then here, you know, up to about, up to 2.4K from 80. And then this goes up to 12K, and then this goes up to 20K. And you can also toggle between the responses. If you look at over here, you know, this can go from a shelf to kind of like a narrow Q sort of gain, up-down gain. And then these can go from a, this goes from a shelf to a narrow Q. This goes from a band, okay, again, this goes from a band with a narrow Q to a shelf, and these guys go from a band with a wide Q to a band with a narrow Q. And he calls it basically character over here. And the high one goes, of course, from the high shelf to the narrow Q, same as the low one. So this is for the 4 EQ. Obviously, gain knobs, minus 18 to 18 dB for each one of the bands. And then the second EQ is a graphical EQ with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different bands. 10 band graphic EQ. And while here you could set the actual frequencies. Here they are preset, but obviously you have a lot more. And basically the only knobs that you have are basically to control the gain of each one of the bands. One cool feature on the graphical EQ is that you have a toggle that resets it really quickly. So if you kind of messed around a little bit and to get all of them back to the middle could take a little bit. So instead of that, you can just press reset and it'll snap everything back to the middle. Really cool feature. And the next one is we had the gate already, compressor. So again, you have here on the compressor itself a few modes: normal compressor mode, a snappy mode, and a de-esser mode. And then you have your usual controls, threshold, and then you have gain over here. Attack, which is again preset to various positions. It can go up to 35 milliseconds and as low as 0.1 millisecond. And the release goes from 50 milliseconds on preset positions all the way to 2.8 seconds. Ratio can act as a limiter if you go all the way to the right to limit. So it's actually a compressor limiter. Or it can go as low as 1.5 ratio. The last parameter is over here on the top. It can go from RMS response to peak response. And it'll also obviously reflect on the metering and on the way the device behaves. So these are the unique modules inside this channel rack. The last module is a scope insert slot, where you can load any mono effect that you have loaded into your scope. So whether it be built-in scope effects, or for example, I have the black box from midi from Space F, so I can load any black box stuff over here. And of course, you can do some pretty funny stuff, like you can load another dNa channel rack inside this multi-effect slot if you so wish. or you can load the scope multi-effect slot, and then you can load various effects over here. So all that is possible in the insert slot. You can also use the insert slot. If you don't want to use effects, you can turn it on and use just, you can use it as another master gain. After you do all your stuff over here, you can use it to gain your overall output sound if you don't want to use the insert slots. So obviously, it works cool. It was kind of hard. I was going to say it works cool when you have everything in concert, but most of the presets that I have made for it, I've made sort of more init presets. While the FX rack, if you look at our other video, many different effects combinations can sound cool on many different sounds. Over here, it's more like a recording. It's more of a recording chain. So it's kind of hard to make presets with 6 different slots, in a recording chain where you don't know what the source material is, because, that's the whole point, is to kind of get that source material tamed and as you would like it. And, the compressor settings would depend a lot on your source material, the preamp settings, gate, and et cetera, everything will depend on the source material. So the presets that I myself have provided for this device are more kind of init presets. For example, like if you want really quickly, like EQ smile, and then around that I can set my compressor, set my preamp, set whatever I need. Or just initialize settings, for example, with effects already loaded in slots, or some examples, for stuff that you can do. Or some compressor presets, so I made like a slow compressor preset, some fast limiter, let's say. All these are just using the compressor, as you can see. So it's kind of my idea for presets for this, but of course you can make your own and get really crazy. It's also really nice, to use the FX slot and kind of surround it with the other stuff that this device provides. So for example, here we have a distortion preset where it takes the sound, takes a little bit off the low end, then it distorts it, and then it compresses it. But again, it's kind of hard to tell on presets, what threshold you will be needing, and what attack and what release. A lot depends on the source material. So again, same as the FX rack, talking about the big advantages of this device. The biggest advantage is obviously that the routing is free. I can decide right now that I actually, for whatever reason in the world, I want the compressor to be the first in the chain and the EQ to be the last in the chain. So all I got to do, is just go here, tell this slot to be the compressor, and then tell this slot to be the EQ. Obviously, even if you change slots and or whatever, the settings you had are stay. They're saved. So I can move it around wherever I want to, or I can decide that I actually want to, stick something in between. So I can move it over here and then decide that I do want a gate or whatever inside the chain. So this is the coolest thing about this is the whole point of this device, that you can, interchange, move things around. It gets really creative really quickly, gets you results really quickly. Just the whole workflow, of setting one, setting the next one, setting the next one. As you start to work with it, you kind of get to know these effects and what they can do for you and how they work in concert. And I find it really pleasing to work with this one. Especially, actually, I really enjoy, you can pass something in the channel rack and then open the effects rack and send something, send a really smooth sound that you've set up with the channel rack into the effects rack, and then give it some life with the effects from the effects rack. Turn your mono signal, your mono guitar signal, that it's now sounds really great as a guitar by itself, turn it into whatever wild things you want to by sending this whole thing to the effects rack. So this is the dNa channel rack. Again, check out also the video for the effects rack, because they're kind of cool when you have both of them. There's also additional presets, not just for me, of course, from dNa, from Ray himself, and some more from Fernando, my partner in Ocean Swift. So it comes with a big enough variety of initialized settings that you can quickly find uses for it. And from our presets, build your own sound and your own use for this device. So I actually really recommend this one and the effects one, and check them out. See you later, guys. Thanks for watching.